It's episode 69 of the Dank Podstash. Nice. Before we jump in to the episode to talk to Andrew Cosgrove about the aftermath of the Virginia Second Amendment rally, let me tell you real quick, the Dank Podstash is now officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get hashtag Boogaloo ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanikolas is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. It's a resource to help you once you get into his training program. There's even a public group to get you inspired beforehand. Go check it out. You can also go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work before you decide to make that leap into the program. And if you want to jump into the program, go to gregpapanikolas.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to health. I'll have those links in the description so you don't have to worry about spelling, whatnot. You can just click them. It's great. I'm in Project Sparta now. I'm down some poundage. I'm feeling good, getting healthier. I'm loving the personalized menu and workouts. Greg works hard on that stuff, and it pays off for you. So don't be that guy that only sits around and talks about change, whether it's your health or even the Boogaloo. Get up, start learning, drilling, training, getting fit. One of the most important parts of prepping, no matter what for, is your physical health. Get to anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order by using code DANK10, DANK10 at libertyunderattack.com. And what can you get there? You can get some books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategy, solutions, and more. Current books include Hashtag Agora, Second Realm Book on Strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vonu, A Strategy for Self-Liberation. They also offer assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook production. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. I want to shout out Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm. I'm loving it. Got myself a boar's hair beard brush and a nice comb. You can see it on the video if you're watching on YouTube. Check it out. So without further ado, let's jump into episode 69 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Podstash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Podstash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Podstash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. Episode 69 of the Dank Podstash. Nice. Andrew Cosgrove gets the honor of being a guest for episode 69, the very special episode. This is going to be a fun one, though, because we're going to talk with Andrew, who was at the Virginia rally on January 20th, right? That was the date. And see what happened there and
yes,
talk about what is happening now, anything in the future that's going to result from this, what did result from it, all kinds of shit. But welcome, man. It's good to talk to you again. You were on Hot Tokes with me and Daniel, and we talked before the Virginia rally. Well, is it a Second Amendment rally? Is that what it was labeled officially?
but yeah, essentially Second Amendment rally. Yeah,
That makes sense. Seeing all the American flags and shit like that there, it makes sense that a lot of people would support the Second Amendment. I know there's a lot of people that don't like the idea of backing the Second Amendment if they're anarchists and don't care about the Constitution, whatever. But that's one thing, too, when people bring up gun rights that I don't really care to argue too much. It's like, oh, fuck the Second Amendment. It's like, what, why argue about this if we're all just arguing in favor of guns? Let people argue for the Second Amendment. Who cares? Yeah. So I'm assuming there were a lot of those types there, the full-on Second Amendment types.
Yeah, definitely. And there were definitely people there who are not exactly fans of anarchists, but
Mhm.
of course part of that is not understanding what anarchy is. So
Right. They're going off the Webster's, the Merriam-Webster definition or whatever, dictionary.com. Anarchy is chaos. So the usual,
yeah, exactly.
the usual misconception. But yeah, so before I want to
Which is
ask you,
funny because
go ahead.
it's ironic because if those definitions of us were true, we would have just shot up the place.
Right.
But obviously, it's not true, so we didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, we would have been sowing chaos if that was what anarchy was all
Yeah.
about. It'd be chaos in the streets,
Yeah.
damn it. But so I want to ask you, of course, like how you're feeling, what you're thinking about afterwards. But before we get into the after effects and whatnot of the rally, why don't you give us a rundown of that day, and even leading up to it? Give us the timeline, how you were feeling, how people around you were feeling, that kind of stuff.
Well, leading up to it was, I would say leading up to it was more hectic than the day itself, honestly, because at this, looking back, it was peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one arrest. So leading up to it, myself, everyone I was speaking to were much more frantic. It was much more dramatic. I think most of us, I can definitely speak for myself, were pretty convinced this was going to be it. This was going to be the time where it was going to get violent. So that was kind of the lead up. That's what I was prepared for. I had a lot of pack weight for me. I had a lot of ammo because I was ready for that. Mm-hmm. Going in, because we parked far out and walked in. The whole walk, I was thinking, I was just thinking about the lead up, basically, like, okay, if this is it, like, I got to be ready. I got to be as calm as one can be, mm-hmm. Because that's how you stay alive. So getting there, one thing I want to say is there was more than 22,000 people there.
Okay.
I think by a lot.
Okay, yeah, because that's a contested number because people were saying 50, 100,000, 200,000, and the news reports are coming out with 20, 22,000. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so the projected numbers beforehand, those were definitely exaggerated. That's okay. A fact. However, the 22,000, that's definitely not accurate. It's just not possible for it to have been. If they want to say that there was 22,000 people there at one given time, maybe, but people were coming and going in droves. I mean, groups of like 20 people. I was with a group of 25. Mm-hmm. So I think there was at least double that. Okay.
So closer to 50.
I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't think the mainstream narrative about that is accurate. There was a fuckload of people there. So going in, of course we didn't go into the gates because, sure. And I think I told you I wasn't going to beforehand.
Yes.
Unless it got to the point of tearing it down, because I'm not going to go in there cage.
Yeah, it's a fucking death trap if things go south, being disarmed inside a cage. Did you see the metal detectors and people frisking people and stuff going in there?
Well, I saw pictures and stuff. This just goes to show how many people were there. It was a literal sea of people. Mm-hmm. So you've got the people right inside the gate. You've got them outside the gate. And we're pushed back like hundreds of yards from it. There was just, it was just a lot of people. Yeah. But I saw the pictures of it. I saw videos of people getting frisked and getting their stuff taken and all that shit. So, which, is so ironic. Mm-hmm. You and Daniel touched on that a little bit. But anyway, so we stayed outside the gate. We marched all the way around several times. We stopped. We would kind of rendezvous. We would talk to people. We talked to a lot of statists while we were there. There was a lot of interviews done with statists.
Shit, that couldn't be avoided. That was most of the crowd, I would imagine.
No. Yeah, no, it was, obviously it's hard to put a exact number on it, but it had to have been 90% at least.
Sure. for sure.
So it was definitely tense because I knew that if someone wanted to start something, they wouldn't even have to shoot anyone. Someone would be able to just shoot into the air, and that'd be it.
Right.
It would just be absolute chaos. We had the snipers on the roof. They, knowing cops and what they do, they'd probably just shoot someone who they thought fired the shot instead of who actually did. But overall, I mean, it's unfortunate to say, but it was pretty uneventful. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I'm not saying I'm not glad I went, but it was pretty uneventful.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, that's the point of contention, I guess, that's been, present on the internet ever since then. And people are like, why didn't anybody kick it off? And people are pointing the finger back and forth. Why didn't you go and kick it off? Blah, blah. That's a stupid fucking thing, because it obviously wasn't planned for that to happen. That was a possibility that a lot of people believed would happen, like you said. And, I'm sure a lot of people, like you were gearing up for it, and I'm sure a lot of people you knew considered it a possibility. But pointing fingers and trying to call people out for not doing something seems stupid, especially if you weren't there at the moment and realizing, fuck, this is just like a sea of people that could just get sniped, whatever. Even though you're outnumbered, it would have been a bloodbath, even if you guys would have been able to overwhelm cops, whatever. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what actually was supposed to happen that day. I still don't even know. I haven't been able to find any video of any politicians speaking there. Like, what's the point of lobby day if people aren't talking to them? They were in their offices and people talked to them. What was going on with that?
Yeah, so there were actually lawmakers in the building. I don't know. I can't honestly answer if cameras were allowed in the building. Obviously, there was a shitload outside of the building, but I don't know if they were allowed inside. Now, here's the thing. This is an annual event. This happens every year. It was just massive this year because of everything going on. And I know generally there are lawmakers there. So I believe that to be true this time. I don't think as many showed up or engaged because of how big it was.
Right. Yeah, and I know.
I think, because I honestly think just like.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You go. Talk over me.
I think just like a lot of us, they were pretty convinced it was going to be violent as well. Okay. Or they were at least prepared for it to be.
Sure. Well, obviously, if that's what Northam wanted to do, was cage people in without guns, and make all these rules to make it safer for them. That's a thing that I think the media is spinning as well. Is there? Northam claimed credit for the safety because of all the decrees, let's say, that he made as dictatorial decrees, and the media are obviously praising him and the state of Virginia for that. Whereas this is, upwards of 50,000 people with guns that acted peacefully of their own accord. That's what happened. It's not anything to do with the safety precautions that government put in. Go ahead.
Even if, because after we were there for a few hours, we got our answer of how it was going to go within 2 hours. We knew it was going to be fine after an hour and a half to 2 hours of being there, because you can just tell. I mean, obviously, if a lone wolf comes out and still fired that shot later in the day, things would be different. But we pretty much we understood that it wasn't going to be the case pretty quickly.
Right.
So, as far as safety is concerned, once we had that understanding, even if someone wanted to act out, they would have been dead instantly, and everything probably could have been okay. We're just speculating there, but my point is to yours, it was safe because of us.
Absolutely. So, okay, so what, I know it's hard to pinpoint what you think would be the kickoff, but what were you preparing for? What was in your head as far as ideas of why you needed to have all your ammo and everything with you just in case something went down? Like, what were the scenarios? Because I'm sure you discussed it with people before you went, of what could go south to cause it to be the kickoff of the Boog.
Yeah, I mean, we had rendezvous points. Most of us had full gear. Most of us were in full kit. So it was, it was basically all the stuff we talked about beforehand. Pulling down the gate, someone fires a shot, someone decides to walk up and shoot a cop in the back of the head. Just any of this kind of stuff. We knew. Me and you kind of discussed a little bit. We knew that it would be chaos beforehand, but we didn't know how chaotic it would be until we were there and understood the gravity of how many people were there, how they had it set up. Because we weren't just worried about getting shot. You'd get trampled out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there would be thousands of people who would have gotten trampled. So there was so many issues to deal with that even though I was as prepared as I could have been for that situation, too many people would have died. I mean, too many of our people would have died. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I don't really care about the statists or the cops. They're not there to help us.
Right.
But we would have lost too many of our people, and that's just, it's not smart. It doesn't help us either.
Absolutely. And yeah, so we do, both you and I and many other people appreciate that it was peaceful. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is why it remained peaceful in the face of, say for what it is, all the memes and the discussion of, making it the kickoff. It was basically, like you said, the possibility of losing so many friendlies that would prevent people from doing that. But I think it's also, a hesitation to go ahead and make that first move with having that gravity, that big of an effect in the back of your mind. Especially speaking of principles, like the debate I held the other day on the Podstash with Andrew Goff and Dustin Menson. Just walking up and shooting someone that's not aggressing directly against you doesn't really jive with most reasonable people. And I think you can very logically view the state and what they do as a constant aggression against you, but getting right there into that, like when I drive down the street and I see a cop next to me parked or whatever, my first thought isn't go shoot him. It's I'm going to be prepared for if that guy comes after me. And so I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about what is going to happen after the laws go through. Because that was one thing that did happen to come out in the news after the rally, was that they're going to go ahead and push through those red flag laws still. And I guess you would know what other stuff they're trying to push through as well, since it's going to affect you, since you're right there. What are they still going to go ahead and go forward with?
So there's a bunch of stuff they're pushing through, but the red flag laws for sure. They're trying to pass a law right now that criminalizes criticizing them online.
Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
Yeah. So they're also trying to push through one handgun a month. I think those are the worst things that they're doing. The one handgun a month, or I think it's just one gun a month, really.
Right.
But the red flag laws and criminalizing criticizing. Those are the things I'm focused on, at least. Those are the things that'll get my door kicked down.
Absolutely. Did they abandon the idea of outlawing any gathering that could be construed as military or paramilitary militia training down to...
I haven't seen any update on that, just because I don't think it's a focus with the gun rally happening and all that. But
Right.
I haven't heard that they scrapped it either. So it's very possible that they are.
That is fucking worrisome.
I'm pretty confident that if they did scrap it, that we would hear about it, because that would be a big deal.
Sure. Yeah. Imagine that gathering in any way to learn self-defense, along with not being able to criticize government in any way, becoming law. How fucking dystopian is that? That's just straight lockdown for the state of Virginia if that happens.
Yeah. I mean, I already have this feeling of, not total paranoia, but my front door is right behind me, and I'm constantly just wondering, all right, when are they going to kick that fucker down? Because it's going to happen. Maybe not, but I'm just being facetious. But with those going through, I mean, the chances go up so exponentially. I mean, it makes it from just like, haha, it might happen, to no, they're definitely going to kick my door down because I'm not going to stop criticizing them online.
Sure. Yep. And if you're criticizing them online, then they'll use any of the vague wording in the red flag laws to be able to send somebody to do that.
Yep.
It's all linked together. And I think that's what people who kind of poo-poo away, like, oh, you guys, you don't need to worry. They just don't want you to be able to buy, 30 handguns a month. What's the problem with buying one? I don't care about that. It's because of all of this being linked together. It's because they're building a case against each individual that they want to disarm.
Generally with the red flag laws, they're kind of vague too, like you said, but the scenario that a lot of us like to use is a disgruntled neighbor that you piss off with your political views, or an ex-wife that you pissed off, or even just an ex-girlfriend or a family member. I mean, it could be anything. But with the criticizing lawmakers and just politicians in general, well, then they don't need a neighbor to be the one to call in and say, hey, this person's dangerous. They just decide it themselves, which they do already. Obviously, we know that. But now they've got more avenues to do that through, assuming this goes through. Now, I want to say that the red flag law, that one specifically did go through the Senate, and it's going to go up to the House now. Okay. So it's going through. I mean, it's not like it's in limbo. It's working its way up.
Right, because those are majority Democrat controlled. And I think I've heard that even Republicans, some of the Republicans in the state are backing it. So much for gun right Republicans. Not that anybody actually believed that they were. I mean, come on. The writing is on the wall.
Well, they believe it, but
I'm sure they believe a lot of things. But do you know the exact date? I can't remember if I asked you that this stuff's to go through. I heard one floating around that it was July 1st.
I'm not sure. I didn't see it. I thought it was sooner than that, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that was the date I ran with that I heard, because I haven't been able to find an accurate source on when it goes through that I can confirm. I guess I need to read through the legislation a little more. But the latest, most popular meme that I've shared on the Dank Pod Stash was talking about another rally the day that this passes and automatically makes a bunch of people lawbreakers instead of law-abiding citizens, quote unquote. Has there been any talk about that, about going back and saying, all right, we did it peacefully the first time, now we're back here and we're holding the same stuff, we're doing the same shit, but now we're felons, so what are you going to do about it?
So let me tell you basically what I've seen for this last week. Because I haven't seen that, so what I want to say is, what I've seen this last week is, and it's part of my concern with the rally failing, failing.
Right. Yeah.
It seems to me that so many people are they're so disheartened by the fact that it didn't happen and that it didn't send the message that it needed to send, that it seems like everyone's they're just giving up. They're just like, okay, that was the big one. It didn't work out, so we're all fucked. I mean, I've been seeing people saying that type of wording. We're fucked. No one's going to do anything. They're just going to come get it and nothing's going to happen. So that's basically what I've seen. I mean, it's actually very concerning, because I understand that it was basically a failure, but at least me, I'm not just gonna let myself be backed into a corner. And I think that we all need to get back on the same page, and we need to figure something out, like you're talking about. Another rally on that day.
For sure. And it seems like it makes more sense because, strength in numbers versus barricading in your house. And even if that doesn't happen, obviously having a network of people close to you to where if you do have to barricade, they can hopefully come bail you out. Similar to what was, maybe did or didn't happen with the whole Whiskey Warrior thing in New York. There's still a lot of contention about that. I know that dude was supposed to go on the Whiskey and Rebellion show and talk about it, but I don't know if he's made an appearance. But either way, that having that network of people you trust and know around you who can bail you out in the event that they fucking come red flag you is important because, like you said, it sounds like people are really disheartened and no one's planning to go back and throw it in their faces and actually say, fuck around and find out. And we talked about, the rally being a failure, and people agree and disagree on that. And I wanted to ask what were the victories from the rally, though, because I can't believe that the whole thing was a failure. The victories, obviously, that I can see are that a whole lot of people didn't get killed, y'all are safe, and lots of people showed up. So there's at least a little bit of thought against government mandates, at the least.
Yeah, so there's definitely that. Everything you just listed, it's not exactly what we wanted out of it, but it's also not necessarily the worst thing that could have come out of it, because the worst thing could have been a lot of us dying. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is anecdotal and personal victories for me and how I feel being in this state right now. Mm-hmm. So, you just mentioned having a group of people that if you have to barricade yourself in your house, that can come and give you a hand. And I met with the group Liberate RVA. It was the first time I met any of them. I've been a part of the group for a while, but I haven't actually seen them or talked to them. So I met up with them, and let me just read this message real quick.
Yeah, it's good. I'm going to talk while you're reading that, but it's definitely.
Well, I'm talking about something relevant to this.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. All right. So after the rally, I sent to Cal. He's the one who runs the page and everything. I sent him and I said, I just said thanks again. I appreciate you having open arms to someone new, because again, I'd never met them in person or anything like that. And his response to me was, it was essentially, you're one of us now. If you need anything, call on us. So I hope that happened for other people at the rally, and I would think it did because there was a lot of us there. Mm-hmm. But for me, I got out of this what you're talking about. I have a group now that I know there's 20 plus of them, if not more, who are willing to help and who will show up. Mm-hmm. Another, and I shortly mentioned this to you, was seeing how many of us were there. And by us, I mean anarchists or anyone that's at least less statist than the MAGA people, who are at least closer to our side. Seeing how many of them were there, even though we were still wildly outnumbered, that was important to me. And I think it was important to other people as well, because there were more of us there than I thought existed.
As far as
I genuinely,
as far as not like straight up MAGA status types, like what kind of types are we talking about if they aren't, straight up anarchist ready for the Boogaloo, like militias?
Yeah. So we were getting approached by anarchists, voluntarists of all factions. I mean, anarchists of, insert whatever kind you want, except socialist. Yeah. But we were getting approached by them all day. And there were big groups of them like ours. It was kind of wild. I expected to see some of our people there, but it was a lot more than I thought was possible.
That's
awesome.
I
know we can get together. I know there can be a good sized group of us. We just need to not be surrounded by statists.
Right. Yeah. And that's a theme too, going back to the debate that we did the other day about, changing minds and stuff. One reason It's always good to change minds. That's always the first option, right? The peaceful change, providing a better product, swaying people. But I don't think that a Boogaloo uprising, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is necessarily something that anybody like us wants to kick off. It's a response to the state kicking it off by coming after us. And the thing that has me leaning more towards the message of violent resistance, violent self-defense, is that I don't think there's time to sway MAGA people. We know what it's like talking to people who are super pro-Trump, pro-state, whatever. They don't. It's like screaming at a brick wall most of the time, and that's a whole lot of work to put in to be ready when shit hits the fan versus actually preparing for, like we were been talking about, your door getting kicked in or networking with like-minded people and stuff. Did you talk to anybody MAGA kind of person there that had, showed any glimmer of hope for that kind of thing?
Yes, actually, and that's part of. I'm curious about, because everyone is talking about how there was total compliance. I understand there was total compliance to what Northam wanted at the building itself, but there was a lot of us who were not in compliance. I had my face covered basically all day, which is a felony. I also had my rifle loaded, and I don't have a concealed carry. I carry one, but I'm not getting your fucking permission. So you can't carry with your magazine in unless you have a concealed carry permit, which doesn't make sense since it's not concealed, but whatever. We had our magazines in, we had our masks on. They would tell us to take it off, and we'd basically say, go fuck yourself. Just keep on moving. There was that one arrest with that girl who got arrested for having the mask on. I'm curious about how that all went down, because they weren't gonna. When we told them no, I'm keeping my mask on, they basically just shut up. I mean, because what are they gonna do?
Right. Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
I'm curious about how that went down for that girl.
Yeah, I don't know. The articles I read about it were really vague, in that she was warned multiple times, and I believe this by the same police officer, and who eventually arrested her. But it didn't really go into detail. Like, I'm surprised that happened. I haven't seen any video of it. You'd think people have been videotaping it. Who knows? Maybe it's just a message to be sent.
Yeah, that's why it's so curious to me. I don't know if she was like, I'm not saying she did or anything, but it's like, it almost sounds like she was taunting the same police officer and just standing there for a long time, which is obviously not smart. Like I said, we were walking around. But anyway, I digress. The point was, did I talk to any statists? I just wanted to throw out there was a bunch of non-compliance for all the compliance that was there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was really focused on people that came out of state. I talked to a lot of people that came out of state because, first of all, I really appreciate that. I personally talked to at least people from 12 different states,
Nice.
But there are people reporting seeing people from 30 states, 35 states. I mean, that's incredible when you think about it. So I actually talked to one of the most memorable one is I talked to two guys. They were older. So they came up and they were just kind of approached our group. I think they were just curious about our signs and stuff because we had some voluntarism signs. And they were asking about, unironically, they were asking about my face being covered in my magazine and talking about how, isn't that illegal? Aren't you worried about getting in trouble? And he was also talking about how one of my pistols was showing a little bit. So it was, they were curious. They weren't being dicks though, so I engaged them. And kind of just, bluntly told them, we have to, even if we're not tearing that fence down, we still have to give them some inkling that we don't give a fuck what they say. And we need to do it in their face, even if it's not to that extent. And those guys understood, and they shook my hand and said, you know what, you're right. there was more to the conversation than that.
Sure.
But that was basically it. And it was like, will it do anything? Maybe not. But maybe they're going to take that 3 states away and say, we have to stop giving a fuck what Trump says. We've got to stop giving a fuck what the cops say. Because if we don't, we're going to keep getting trampled.
Right. Yeah. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And that's the history of every infringement on any right, any freedom in America anyways. They take all they can when they're seated any ground. But I'm glad that you brought up what exactly was non-compliant about it, because that's the big misconception from the media and even just from other people, Boogaloo enthusiasts, let's say, that are talking about this. So it was totally compliant. But like you said, walking felonies going on around there. And sure, it's not as exciting as tearing down a fence.
I probably had 3.
Yeah. And it's not as exciting as tearing down the fence or anything like that, which, of course, people on the internet want to see because they want to be entertained. But they don't think about, and myself included, don't think about the consequences of that, when you're not there. So I get the you had to be there argument and stuff like that, because it's absolutely 100% true. I think there can be support and criticism even if you weren't there, as long as it's constructive, because it's not us who weren't there versus you who were there, obviously, because it's going to pop off everywhere if it pops off somewhere. There's just no point in really nasty criticism with no constructive ends to it whatsoever. It's just dividing more, which is something we obviously are working to dispel as much as possible, because we can't do this if we're all divided and arguing about petty bullshit. But that's good that there was non-compliance even on that level. And I really hope that it comes down to another large group of people showing non-compliance when the laws kick in, because it's a constant fear of everybody who doesn't comply with gun laws, or even, now that we're talking about the criticism laws, being put into place. I think it's a constant fear of everybody who's anti-government about getting your door kicked down and having enough people to help you, making another Bundy Ranch stand or something like that. It'd be much better to see a united front in the face of that tyranny versus having to worry about being alone.
Yeah. So, you mentioned part of the criticisms of being there versus not being there, or just how the rally went in general. And, I participated in some of that, but that's why when I messaged you earlier, I said I was glad we waited to do this. You sit on it a little bit, you become more clear-headed, you think about it more. Mm-hmm. And, I think what ended up happening is you and Daniel mentioned passing the buck. Mm-hmm. I think the people who were there and the people who weren't just ended up passing the buck back and forth to each other.
Yes.
And it did nothing. I mean, it did nothing at all except make us all irritated. And, like I mentioned in an earlier question, we have to get back on the same page, because first of all, if a large group of us do give up and they think because nothing happened there that we're totally fucked, we will be fucked, because we need all those people. I mean, we need as many people as we can possibly get. So yeah, we've got to get back on the same page. We've got to organize something. And I think, you said when the laws get enacted, I think it's going to be worse if it's not before then. Because I think more people are going to be more disheartened if it goes all the way through. And not only that, it's going to give Northam and all his cronies a sense of entitlement. Mm-hmm. They got their wish. They did what they wanted, regardless of us, and no one stopped them. They didn't give a shit that 50,000 people showed up to a rally. So I think it needs to be before then.
I agree. That was a thing, too, that I would be worried about once they're ready to pass those laws and enforce them, is the militarization of the local police, and whether or not they bring in, I can't imagine they would bring in National Guard until it got wild, but who fucking knows if they're going to go door to door. But seeing the videos of the mini government killdozer, that skid steer, I can't remember what it's called, but to put SWAT up to a second level.
I think it's called the Rook.
The Rook. Okay. Seeing that, and a lot of people were spreading a lot of images of what they were calling tanks, which clearly were not fucking tanks. It's just armored vehicles, MRAPs, whatever. Were you seeing a lot of those around?
So I don't know if you saw the picture that I posted that had my full group in it.
Yes.
We took it in front of a state police MRAP.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were there, but they were on the outskirts. So when we took that picture, we were walking around to the other side because we wanted to see the people on the other side of the building.
Right.
So they never really brought them in to where all the people were. I mean, they were certainly accessible. They were close by.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't see the Rook. I kind of wanted to scope that thing out and see. I just wanted to have a look at it, but
hit the hydraulic lines. They conveniently leave the hydraulic lines exposed. I've run many a skid steer, and that's the quickest way, unless you can pop those tracks, because that takes a little bit of doing to get those back on and stay. So that's that's good strategy there. But my concern.
Do those?
Go ahead.
Do those tracks burn? What are they?
They're a really hard rubber. They don't have metal tracks on them because they don't want to tear up asphalt or whatever they're on. But even those ones turning sharp on asphalt or on an uneven surface can pop off pretty easily, and it takes a little bit of you got to get a pry bar on them and pry them back on, and then you have to re-grease and get everything tightened up so that they're not loose anymore, because that loosens them up. I was in mining for a while, just small scale stuff. So but the hydraulic lines, that's where you want to go. Even a Molotov will probably take care of the hydraulic lines. But my concern is that they brought all this stuff in as obviously a show of force for the initial rally, but are they keeping it around to be used in the event that people resist the laws when they pass? How much of that stuff was brought there under the pretense of peacekeeping for the rally, only to be stored and ready for going after individuals?
Well, I'm sure most of it, if not all. I mean, well, and here's the thing. I mentioned a sense of entitlement for these politicians and all the crooks. We can sit here and speculate. Okay, they're going to keep that stuff around, but honestly, if they saw us do nothing, and then Northam told himself and everyone else that it was him that kept that rally safe, they may not give a shit anymore. They may not even be scared of us anymore, or if they ever were. I mean, so I'm sure they're going to keep it around, but for all we know, they may not even be scared. They may not have gotten any of the message,
which could be a good thing.
And that's certainly what it seems like to me.
Because if they're not scared, then you got the jump, right?
Yep. But as you said, we would have the jump in that instance. But you said to me, we put the ball in their court by being peaceful, and you're right. And we've got to rip it out of their hands now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is just a whole weird situation, because I don't like passing criticism. I definitely shared memes that were pretty harshly critical because they're fucking hilarious, and that's what my fucking page is. It's for memes. Mm-hmm. But I tried to back off that a little more, especially with that one about rallying again once the laws go into effect. Like we talked about, the divisiveness, but it's a really hard situation to judge. Because I'll cede the point of it's hard to judge if you weren't there. It's hard to figure out because that's your place, that's your home, that's where you live. You know what the climate is there for politicians and whatnot. The state I live in Washington, we have red flag laws already. Luckily, the eastern end where we are is, how much can you trust the sheriffs even when they say they're not going to enforce these laws? They've said that over here. We'll fucking see. So that's another thing. Do you trust that from the sheriffs and stuff? The people who have made Second Amendment sanctuaries and things like that. The people who say they won't follow the government mandates.
No, absolutely not. we briefly mentioned this on the short one we did a couple weeks ago. But if they were so privy to our gun rights, why have they been enforcing gun laws this whole time? Why is it important to them now? Why are you taking a stand now instead of for the last century when it was important?
Sure.
So I don't trust it at all. You see, I'm sure some of those, well, I'm not just sure, I'm positive some of those cops at that rally, I'm sure they share all kinds of shit on social media about how they're gonna fight for our rights. They're not gonna enforce these laws, and they fucking show up to the rally and enforce the laws. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, I mentioned to you, I don't have their fucking permission card to conceal carry a gun, but if it wouldn't get to this, but if I were to get pulled over and someone started searching me, I would go to jail. I would have a felony. So why is it important to you now? You can't convince me that they're telling the truth.
Maybe is election season coming around? Because if people are pissed off about this whole thing and they want to get reelected, that's a good strategy. It's the same as any other politician trying to get elected. Lie and lie and lie until you're there.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, and then once you're in, you don't have to do a fucking thing you said. You don't have to do anything you said. I mean, when is that not the case now? A politician using whatever they want to say to get elected, and then not doing 90% of it.
Right. I'm really curious.
It's the same thing with the sheriffs.
I'm really curious, speaking of what they will and won't enforce, because we don't know if that grouping together for teaching self-defense in any way, if that bill or suggested bill, whatever the fuck it is going to be passed, if that's still going through or not. I'm curious what they would do about that in this situation. Because if they say they're not going to enforce these laws, as far as maybe some of the heavier ones, some of the red flag and stuff like that, I wonder what their stance on that is.
Well, that's part of the other thing with them that would make it virtually impossible to convince me. Because whenever, when they make these sanctuaries, they call them Second Amendment sanctuaries. Okay, well, what about all the other ones? I mean, you constantly violate the Fourth Amendment every day. So people get arrested for saying what they want all the time. Many cops will, if you go and stick your middle finger in their face, they'll arrest you even though they don't have grounds to, because they make the rules up as they go. And it sounds like that's exactly what's happening here. They're making the rules up as they go to do what you said, to get their votes and to keep the people on their side.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. They're just focusing on the one amendment sanctuary. And what about with the First Amendment being violated with criticism of government officials? I don't see any fucking First Amendment sanctuaries popping up, like you said, Fourth Amendment sanctuaries. Because if that was a thing that was going to go through, that they're going to come after you if you group together and learn any sort of self-defense, maybe they say they don't enforce that, but who knows what else they're going to try to pop you for when they come and investigate your gathering there. Because like you said, if you don't have their permission slip to concealed carry or whatever, and you're doing some gun training at a range, say, and they're out there, you think they're not going to check that? They're like, yeah, you can have guns, but only if it's right, only if it's doing it our way.
Well, we all know it comes down to revenue. I mean, that's basically it. And the more of these laws that pass, the more revenue they get. So that's been the case for as long as I can remember. I don't understand how they think it's going to convince anyone who's at least remotely intelligent that they're actually on our side.
Right.
And you know what? Up until now, I've had to watch every day new videos of cops killing innocent people over these kinds of problems that we're talking about. So I can't just forgive that. I can't. I'm sorry if other people can, but
no,
we've watched these people doing just awful things for years, and nothing has stopped them. But it's going to be this that does? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sure. That's something I hadn't even thought about. Like, why is this the why is this the catalyst for them to supposedly announce their support? It's very strange. I wonder too why was the Virginia the hot ground for this? Why is this where the rally took place and people all gathered together? I don't know if you know. I'm just spitballing here because there's red flag laws that are similar to or exactly like what Northam wants to push through already passed in other states, and there weren't any large scale rallies there. Was this what was this the that meme where that face when you realize your shit posting pushed Virginia into a state of emergency, scared the governor so much? Was this the internet hype over it? Or is it just way more ridiculous laws?
Well, I think it's perceived as, you said it, way more ridiculous laws at one time, even though, that happens every time the House or the Senate switches. It happens every time. They have a plan and they tell everyone beforehand, we're going to do all this shit and we're going to do it basically the day that we take office. So I think it was just perception. I think there's also a perception that Virginia is supposed to be a southern state, which it fucking isn't at all. That it's supposed to be a sanctuary for, I don't know, right-wing people. And it's not, obviously. And also the internet, like you said. I think it was a bunch of hype. And again, I'm guilty of that too. And I recognize that leading up to this, I was basically convinced that this was going to be it. And I think a lot of people were too.
That's something I've talked about too. It was hyped a lot, and there was a lot of hope for the kickoff of the Boog, a second shot heard around the world. And I think I can't remember who I talked to this about. I think I talked about this. I don't know, who fucking knows, but I think that stems from the constant stress, like we were talking about, of wondering when the door is going to get kicked in. What the fuck are they going to do next? When are they going to come for me? And feeling like that it's just fucking happen. Fucking do it already. Let's fucking go. I'm sick of sitting here biting my fucking nails waiting to see when this is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It and let's be honest, we are under constant stress. I think even if you're not similar to us, similar to beliefs to us, whether or not it's justified, everyone is so stressed out about the perceived threats that they feel, that it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy right now. And I think people saw this as an opportunity to, you know what, I'm not going to sit in my living room and wait for the door to kick down while I'm sitting there trying to play some Xbox or whatever. I'm going to go to this thing and I'm going to be there instead of them surprising me coming through the door. And I understand that mentality, and I probably felt something similar. So I think you're exactly right. It's the stress.
It's interesting that the Trump supporters, like the people, and I hate saying Trump supporters as a broad term because I'm specifically talking about the people who were there, and the Trump supporters or Republicans, whatever, who want to keep guns and aren't on board with any of the infringements, despite Trump, being one of the most anti-Second Amendment presidents ever. I think it's interesting. They probably don't feel a lot of stress, would be my guess, because they kind of just lay it on him to take care of it. They're fooling themselves into not having any stress about it, whereas us who are feeling very stressed about it and preparing, like you said, with RVA and whatnot, and getting ready for that eventuality, are taking it upon ourselves to make those feelings a little less by being ready. It's worrisome that the people who are putting it all on Trump to save them aren't doing that, because they're the ones that are going to be caught with their pants down.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You're right. They probably don't feel that kind of stress, I wouldn't imagine, because, well, because it's a delusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what it is. There was a few people there. They got together, and their whole purpose was to go to march around the rally, and they were basically talking to the people we're referencing about how it's going to be cops that come and take their guns.
Nice.
I watched them several times have these conversations. Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite things that I saw. And I didn't see anyone just like walk away or get aggressive or anything like that. So people were listening. Whether or not it does anything, that's a totally different story. But you're right. It's a delusion, and that is kind of frightening to witness people be that delusional. But I can also understand it because I've been that delusional before. I have been that statist that didn't understand what was happening.
Right. Were you close to any of those conversations about it being the cops taking the guns, like close enough to be able to hear, specific responses or anything?
Not close enough, but when they weren't stopped to talk to someone, they were chanting. They're basically saying "fuck the police," and they're gonna come and they're gonna be the ones who come and get your shit. So I knew what they were doing, and I'd walk by and hear them talking about it, but I wasn't close enough to hear the responses. But I'm pretty sure we know what the responses are. We've heard them 1,000 times.
Yeah. I'm hoping there was some positive reception of those talking points, because that's one of the biggest disconnects that I just don't understand. What you're saying, it's like, who the fuck do you think is going to come door to door and take them? If it's not the cops, it's the National Guard. Either way, it's agents of the state. But so it's obviously part of the media hype that Alex Jones was there. Even if you didn't see him there, what did you think of that? Like, did that accomplish anything? All I saw was video of him getting swarmed, riding around in his whatever fucking vehicle that was, shouting about 1776 and stuff. That seemed like probably the most useless thing about the rally was Alex Jones being there.
Yeah, so I actually did see him multiple times. Like, I was feet away from him multiple times. I don't know if you saw the video where his little vehicle thing is going by and it has the taxation is theft sticker on it. That magnetic sticker, someone from my group had those and put it on his thing.
Oh, nice.
There's video of the guy asking, can I put it on there? And he says, yeah. So the only thing it accomplished, in my opinion, is me getting a laugh out of someone I was with putting a taxation is theft sticker on his fucking armored vehicle or whatever the hell it is. No, I don't think it accomplished anything. I think Alex Jones is hilarious. I think that he's good in terms of pointing out some corruption. I think he has broken important stories before, but in terms of actually being there and accomplishing anything, no.
Right. Yeah, that seemed like part of the media circus. And something like that is exactly what the left-leaning media was probably hoping would go down there, so they could jump all over that and say how ridiculous it was.
Yeah, and it is ridiculous. I mean, just him as a whole, his whole thing is ridiculous. Whether or not I find it funny is, different, but it's ridiculous. And it might hype people up a little bit, but who's it hyping up? It's hyping up the people we're talking about, the statists who don't understand. It's cops who are going to come take their guns. It doesn't do much for actually preventing these things from happening.
Right. Yeah, and that's basically why we were going to talk today, is that whole what did anything to prevent these things from happening. I really hope that somehow they got the message, the state got the message, but I don't know, we haven't seen that they've gotten the message. So yeah, I don't know what's going to come about that. We can only wait and see, but I'm glad about the points that you brought up, that people on the ground got the message, that you all solidified the message with yourselves in coming together as groups and whatnot. And I hope it doesn't come down to, I don't know if I hope that. I was about to say I hope it doesn't come down to Boog or whatever, but like we said, everybody's ready to just drop the stress and fucking go for it. So we're right about at the hour. You got anything?
Yeah, and you can't.
Go ahead and tell us whatever else you got. We're at about an hour.
All right. You can't blame anyone. I mean, it's again, I am as prepared as I possibly can be. Well, that's not true, but I'm very prepared for if that door gets kicked down.
Sure.
You're never as completely prepared as you could be. And you can't blame people for wanting to not have to worry about that anymore. I mean, I've got a child, and we hear about these stories all the time where a fucking baby gets flashbanged in the face, or a whole family gets shot.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't blame people for getting hyped up. I think what we need to do though is learn from that situation. I think we all can probably agree we hyped it up too much. We didn't sit back and consider enough. Okay, this place is going to be full of statists compared to us. We're going to be at risk of getting trampled. We're going to be at risk of getting shot by not just the cops, but statists alike. So I think we can learn to not rely on hindsight, first of all, and also just we can plan better in general, and we need to do that because we know the state can plan. We know they don't always execute very well, but we know that they plan. We know that the three different groups of police got together and planned this whole thing. They planned where the gate was going to be and what vehicles were going to be where and all that stuff. And we need to be doing something similar. We can do it better than we did, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hyping up, there's hundreds of Boogaloo pages that sprung up just because of this. And, getting hyped over memes, they do hype people up, is, like you said, not planning. And hype for the sake of hype is worthless. Echo chambers are worthless. There's not a whole lot that gets discussed of meaning in an echo chamber. But be careful, too, everybody, if you're planning even your own defense network where you live. Try to use encrypted messaging. I know it's hard to stay out of the eye of the state no matter what, but you got to do what you can to not become an easy target, to give them an excuse. But plan nonetheless, because like you said, Andrew, you're never as prepared as you want to be. Yesterday is always the day that you should have been prepared, but that shouldn't discourage anybody from keeping on preparing, getting ready, because there's time. It didn't go down on the 20th, and so now there's a little bit of time because they're not kicking indoors yet, so make the most of it.
That's right. Yeah, and just try not to be totally discouraged. We don't have to, just because this didn't happen on the day we expected, that does not mean we have to let the state trample us. And it doesn't mean that we can't do anything about it, because we can. We know how many guns are in the hands of normal citizens. We know that we are smart enough to organize, and we know that we don't have to let this happen.
Absolutely. Yes. Stay safe, everybody. Andrew, stay safe. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. It was an excellent conversation. It's stuff that needed to be talked about. We'll have to do it again, or maybe hot tokes, whatever, to keep people updated on what's going on there. And I don't know. Still thinking about doing a prepping style series maybe for the show, maybe in short form. We'll get you on that as well, since you're in the hot zone of Virginia right now. So.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Hell yeah, we'll do that. Remember, everybody, total freedom, no exceptions.